A selection from More Tales from the Rusty Rabbit by Gregga J. John. This is the first short story called The Captain. It was a dark and stormy night, as it usually is at the beginning of tales such as this. Ruffians were abroad and shenanigans were about, thus the Rusty Rabbit Tavern was full to the brim of all the foamy sorts. There were pirates and mercenaries, legitimate defence strategists of the Trevel militia, hard-working labourers, ladies lying in wait, and a few knowledgeable businessmen with their sights set on the ease from the harsh realities of life. The half-door that opened onto the tobacco shop next door was converged upon by all, and Fell, the infamous flora-energist of disrepute, kept the leaf of the seasons burning in their savoury freshness and dank wafting, so that the air was thick with the incense of revelation. Mason held station at the bar, as was his right, being proprietor of all things Rusty and the Rabbit, and he kept a sharp eye on the emptying jugs of brew, and a sharp tongue on his help. Roland, the said help, a teen of blonde hair and blue eyes, moved in adept speed throughout the crowd, picking up, refilling, and emptying stools, as the clientele staggered in their drunkenness. His fawn energy saw him swift as an eagle, quick as a rat, strong as a boar, and focused as a lone wolf. In fact, his energy familiar was an Arctic wolf who kept the peace with the quiet baring of his teeth in all their translucent blue glory, should any fight break out of the mode of friendly roughhousing and into deadly danger. Thus was the atmosphere of dark, glowing glory, when a rowdy crowd, brewing with youthful vim and vigour, entered, and found themselves against the steady terror of experience. Some young bucks, escaping the luxury of their private schooling, came prowling the lower levels, looking for more than they thought they'd find when they flexed their forces and pitted against a table of mucked-up sailors. Roland's wolf could not hold against the wild festering of energies that began flying about, and his master, the bright teen, looked to his mentor for help. But Mason continued ignoring the fight and filled the jugs of those taking refuge closer to the bar. "Mason!" Roland cried over the ruckus. "What shall we do?" He ducked a shattering bottle as it glanced off a ceiling beam. "They'll destroy the place!" Mason shrugged. "The Rusty's seen worse, and we'll see more than they've got to burn off tonight." Roland continued to panic, with good reason. "They'll kill someone," he whispered at full voice over the tumult. "I know these crab-holes. They're biochemically engineered, and I've seen their work at school, and that's when they're constrained by the Academy's laws." "I'd be more concerned for the boys' safety, son, not the sailors." Mason paused and nodded his head toward the staircase that saw a shadow descending from the steps above. "They're Jeremiah's crew." The shadow on the steps crept mercilessly down to the floor till it was joined by a pair of dusty leather boots that filled up into the massive muscle and life-hardness of pirate Captain Jeremiah. There was a natural pause in the air, as his presence was felt throughout the room, and the ladies drew their breath in one accord. He looked at the rabble-rousing leader and nodded, saluting in typical Trevel style, with his index finger pointed straight to the outer corner of his left eye. He noticed that the black-skinned boy was young, a very young teen, but there was not the physical weakness of youth about him, only the inexperience. Flanked on either side were two other copies, triplets. Jeremiah recognized the stench of laboratory engineering in their genes and carefully took stock of the unexpected. "What you looking for, boy?" the captain warned in his query. "That's none of your business, sir." The boyish arrogance rang clear, and the dark demigod pointed at the sailor standing on the table behind Jeremiah, who stood doubly ready with sword brandished and dagger waiting. "I'll have my satisfaction from that wench." Jeremiah smirked, took his time, glancing behind to survey the woman ready for action. "That ain't no wench, son. She ain't even a lady. That's Nan's. She be pirate through and through." "Then all pirates be damned to Hades, one swinging rope at a time." The central boy tossed his dagger at the ropes, holding up the very ceiling luminaries. It sliced through, and the rope end sprang back at the whipping at the face of the female pirate. She snatched it, clean out of the air, holding tight as it swooped her above the boy's head and then tumbling mid-flight and landing behind him with the sword around his throat and dagger at his ribs. She whispered hoarsely into his ear, "After you." The carbon copies on either side were not slow, and the she-pirate found herself outmettled, with the bastard sword at her neck, and 2 metallic shard whips snaking their way up her leg and arm. She blinked only briefly, trying not to beg her captain for help. The lesser of the 3 black-skinned boys mocked. "I thought it was bad luck to have a female aboard a pirate ship." Jeremiah sat on the table she'd been standing on, lit a half-chewed cigar and chatted with the 3. "That it is, my boy. Bad luck indeed. For you." The crew laughed as Nans bit down on the arm around her neck, but the whips only tightened their cutting grip, and the bastard sword drew blood. Jeremiah quieted the sailors, each of whom wanted to tear the triplets limb from limb and beat the boys with their bloody stumps. The hardened and calm pirate continued his parley. "You be saying this ain't my business, do you? How can it be not my business when it's my crew you're messing with? They be all my business, and personal like, you know." The whole tavern quieted with his casual grace, and the remainder of his crew put away their weaponry and stood their ground expectantly. The central figure of the triplets, still with Nan's iron sharpened against his skin and jacket, spat back, "Sir, I don't believe you know whom you're addressing." Smiling behind the glowing embers of his cigar, the captain said, "Enlighten me." "My name is Ham Stillwell, and these are my brothers Shem and Japheth. We are named after the fathers of the Trevel culture, and we are created as a greater continuation of our great race. The Stillwell triplets will lead you all into class, culture, and cunning victory over all who stand in our way." "Conquering." Jeremiah's first mate, Natural, corrected the boy. "I think you mean conquering and not victory." "What?" Ham's eyes nearly crossed in shock, confused by the randomness. "Don't you think, Captain? Class, culture, and cunning conquering. That makes the alliteration complete." He giggled at himself and repeated his addition to the grammatical equation. "Complete." "Nah." Beck, another she-pirate, argued, "The cunning conquering is clumsy. You can't have both ending in ing." Natural pointed out the continuing grammatical flair and said, "Oh, clumsy, I see what you did there." "Excuse me." Shem dug his bastard sword deeper into the already trickling blood of the wench in the triplets' clutches. "I hate to interrupt your delightful grammatical debate, but we have a small stalemate in attendance that I should like to conclude in the near future." Meaning, now. Nan screeched under the tight grip of the whips that cut deeper into her skin as the bastard sword reared back on a direct trajectory with her neck. "Oh, now that's just rude," complained Jeremiah. The whip around Nan's arm pulled off violently, leaving a bloody gouge spiralling down to her wrist, then spat like a viper tongue and flew in the face of the steady Trevel captain, threatening to strip the feather in his white captain's hat. The feather, however, dodged and wavered in the breeze that whispered around the heavy trench coat of dusky burgundy and swirled to form a tornado the size of the pirate's belly. Moving his arms with the power of energized chi, he thrust the tornado like a bowling ball into the rabble and tossed them all apart. The sailors of Jeremiah's crew, familiar with such disciplines, held tight to all that was near. Even Nan's, in practised flight, tumbled exactly to where she wanted in the wind and held the bar top tightly. The boys, however, were schooled. They took their beatings with rebellious hearts that failed into unconsciousness, leaving them flush on the floor, a paler shade of black. The tavern locals tossed them out into the rain, and a regulated rustiness returned to the rabbit. Beck smoothed a soft blue goo over the bloody wound winding down Nan's arm and smiled in admiration. "Thou make a magnificent scar, hun." Nan winced in happy agreement. Natural encouraged. "I can tattoo a pretty daisy chain along it if you like." He examined the bloody parchment set for his ink. I know how you like little flowers." "Oh, that'd be lovely, Natural, thank you." Nan took a heavy swig of numbing alcohol. Mason poured the pirate captain his usual smooth liquid, and Jeremiah settled in, savouring the flavour of his 4-finger deep whisky.